Industry bodies are calling for a migration overhaul due to a skills shortage in Australia. The Joint Standing Committee on Migration will hold a public hearing in Sydney today after an interim report into Australia's skilled migration program recommended quarantine places and flights be set aside for skilled migrants. Joining me now live is Liberal MP Julian Leeser. Julian, great to see you. Thank you for joining me this morning. The Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry wants the migration program overhauled. Has it become too complex?
Look, I think there's a strong view among business that it has become too complex, and that's why we're doing this inquiry. We're looking at two key aspects. One, what can we do to get the economy restarted after COVID? That was the interim report. And secondly, what are the things that businesses are saying to us about the skilled migration program that's making it difficult? Some of the issues around skills lists, some of the issues around the terms and conditions of the visas, some of the red tape that's in the way of business are questions that we'll be considering today. And we'll be talking to people from the hospitality industry, from the interactive gaming industry and from healthcare. But right across the economy, we're hearing that there are real issues in relation to businesses getting the skills that they need here in Australia. During the course of COVID, we've lost 500,000 temporary visa holders. And many of those people were skilled migrants, and they are skills that just don't exist in the Australian economy. We need to get them back to get Australian businesses moving again and to employ more Australians.
Well, some businesses say they simply just won't survive the rest of the year without skilled migrants. What impact is the prolonged border closure, particularly the international border, having?
Look, this is definitely having an impact on people, but I suppose the focus of this phase of the inquiry is looking at the system more holistically. And one of the key issues that we're looking at is these issues of the lists. The classification of occupations means that depending on where you are on a skilled list depends on whether your migrant has a pathway to permanent residency, which is obviously more attractive to bring somebody here, how quickly you can bring somebody in. And there's real complaint about those lists not being fit for purpose and actually helping delay not just the recovery, but the pace of economic growth in Australia more broadly.
Labor has said that stranded Australians will be sent to the back of the queue in favour of foreign workers. Is that the case?
Well, no, this is not the case. And what we made clear was always that, of course, you want to prioritise Australians coming home. That's always been the government's priority. But there has been a debate about whether we should reserve places for students and tourists as Australians come back. And my view is that we actually also need to reserve places for skilled migrants on flights on the basis that many of Australia's businesses are not operating at full ball on the basis that they've got these skill shortages. And having skill shortages of a particular migrant in the middle of the business means that jobs for Australians on which that skilled migrant depend can't roll out. And we want to see more Australians in jobs as the economy recovers.
Right, let's move on now. I want to speak to you about the vaccine. The Prime Minister overnight said that Australia is now abandoning targets for its vaccine rollout. For the sake of transparency, why is that appropriate?
Well, we still want to get people vaccinated as quickly as possible. That remains the target. And I think that that's an important thing to do. But obviously, on the basis of the medical advice, we have now encouraged people under 50 to get the Pfizer vaccine. We've ordered an additional 20 million Pfizer vaccinations. They're coming in the fourth quarter this year, and we're encouraging people over 50 to have the AstraZeneca vaccine. My family's putting the money where their mouth is. My mother yesterday had her AstraZeneca vaccine. She's in her early 70s. But it's important that we are transparent with Australians as much as possible about where we can go, and I think it's wrong to set a timetable this far out, given the change that's been made in the medical advice that we've received.
But for the sake of confidence, though, shouldn't Australians know when they're likely to at least get their first vaccine?
Well, I think we know that there's 20 million Pfizer vaccines here now, and there's 20 million coming in the fourth quarter. And if you are over 70, which is the current group, or over 55 as an Indigenous Australian, you should be getting the AstraZeneca vaccine that is available. It is safe for people over those ages. As I say, that's what we're doing with my family, and I encourage other Australians to do the same.
There's a lot of uncertainty, though, surrounding the vaccine and has since the rollout began. Has the government made errors along the way?
I think we've been always following the medical advice that we've been given, and that I think is what Australians expect us to do. And I think when we look around the world, following the medical advice here has put us in the best position. We're going to talk about Prince Philip in a minute. When you look at Australia and Britain today, there are 30 people attending Prince Philip's funeral. The Prime Minister of Britain can't even attend his funeral because of the COVID restrictions there. Whereas at the memorial service that was held in Sydney, that the Prime Minister, the Premier, the Governor-General attended, it was a full church. That indicates that listening to the medical advice has been the right thing to do. That's what we're doing here. That's what we'll continue to do.
Let's talk about Prince Philip, a profound impact that he had on Australia, visiting the country more than 20 times.
Absolutely. I mean, he was patron of, I think, over 50 organisations here. I think it's largely now forgotten that he was the second president of the Australian Conservation Foundation. But he represents, he's not just a person and not just the Queen's husband, he in many respects represents a series of values and an era in our life that is now passing very rapidly, and that's that wonderful World War II generation. I mean, he had a really extraordinary war record. He served with Australians in the Indian Ocean and in Greece and Crete as well, and has just been such a rock for the Queen. And I think the Duke of Edinburgh's award, which hundreds of thousands of Australians have done based on virtues of public service and based on virtues of outdoor activity and exercise, has been something that's been wonderful for Australians to involve themselves in. He will be a much missed figure, and my sympathy is with Her Majesty the Queen.
Absolutely.